Hello everybody, I am Ben from Team Panic, and today we're going to be looking at my sawbot. This thing went in and fought pretty well at the last meet. However, it's a little damaged at this point. So today I want to go through, look at what's wrong with it, and then also do some upgrades so that hopefully next time around we can have a much better showing. So without further ado, let's jump on in close and have a look at the problems. So one thing should be obvious right off the bat. This arm is at an angle, out this way. And you can probably see in here that the gear teeth aren't quite meshing properly anymore because this arm is at an angle. And if you really take a look at it, what's happened is that this upright, the mount that this arm is connected to, has bent and twisted in a direction, forcing everything off kilter. So that's a problem, and realistically we can fix this by having a second mount. The problem with having a second mount, of course, is weight. The more stuff we add to this, the more stuff we have to strip back off, because this was right at 150 grams when we fought it. So that was the first problem. The second problem, also up the front here, also quite obvious, nice big gash in the front. That just shows us that this ABS isn't the greatest for a front armor, and it was split because of the mounting of this front scoop. The front scoop, also an issue. It doesn't actually sit flat, so this is forwards for the robot, and you can see that the scoop is kind of off at a different angle, which meant that as I tried to drive, the robot turned in one direction, which wasn't good. However, it did save us a lot of weight. But what I'm thinking now is I need the front wedge to be straight, and that's a critical piece. But I don't need the front wall to be straight. I need the front wall to be strong. So what I'm thinking is swapping these two ideas, having the wedge be printed in ABS and having the front armor be a bent piece of HDPE. It's going to be a lot stronger and a lot lighter, and just in general be better armor for us, I think. Other than that, I don't know there's too much else going on here until we start to pull this apart. So let's do that now. Let's pull everything down and see if there are any other issues inside here. Okay, we have one disassembled saw robot here. Now, some extra things that I thought about and learnt as I went through. So first of all, this is a flexible PLA gear in here, and I realized that I don't actually need a flexible PLA gear. The teeth mesh is fine. Everything seems to be okay without running a flexible PLA gear, so we're actually going to get rid of this and run it as an ABS gear, because that will actually save a little bit of weight, probably like half a gram or something, but every little bit helps at this point in time. The other thing too was that I remembered during some fights, this arm bottomed out on some people, so we hit people with the arm like around about here before we hit them with the saw. So we need to curve this arm so that there's space underneath it for the robot to like be here and then still be hit with the saw, something along those lines. And then finally, I thought this piece was twisted. This piece is flat. It's good, it's ready to go. it was actually the wall, the part that it was mounted to was twisted. So if I had actually ABS welded this in place, that would have been totally fine with this thickness of PLA. So I'm thinking that I knew what the problem was here. I'd done this design already, but I'm now going to go back and shrink that because I might as well. That actually held up surprisingly well. So I'm going to shrink that, or I might even just use this one because it's here and it worked and it survived. You can tell though that the mounting on these servos is pretty rubbish. So relying on the hot glue to mount them up is actually probably my best bet, I think, because yeah, when they're in place, they're just terrible. Anyway, time to go and redesign this stuff and have a bit of a print. So while the real parts are printing, I want to show you this, which is the test of the strength upgrade we're going to do on this next design as well. So this is actually a failed print because it warped quite considerably, especially on this side. And also this arm is too thick. It was actually I printed the base thinking that I'd changed everything up, but I had not. So I just printed one of these arms to do a test case with. But what I've done is I've acetone welded this in here. I have mixed some acetone with some leftover prints, got kind of like a ABS paste going, and then use that to weld these two things together. And the whole idea of this is to make this a whole lot stronger, because in the old version we literally just had one screw going in here, and the plan was to ABS weld it, but I didn't actually end up doing that, and it was weak and it broke. This, on the other hand, this is amazingly strong. So this has been printed in the right orientation to have the strength and the directions it needs, and it's like crazy strong. I have bent the front wedge here without actually doing any other damage to this thing. It's ridiculous how good this works. Like, I could probably break this thing in half based on the power of this, I reckon, without actually breaking the connection here. So that's great. That is what I wanted to see out of this. So I'm now going to print some more parts. I've got a thinner version of this coming. I also have a different version of this guy, which that should actually, yeah, there you go. That slots in there. So that's what this is all going to look like. And yeah, we'll mount up a different gear and everything, and hopefully that'll be all good. Then we'll look at making up new front armor. So this is going to be something like this, but probably a lot shorter, like down about here somewhere. There you go. Anyway, waiting for more parts. New prints. So we've now got both of our uprights, and these should just kind of slot into here and into there. If we just go like this, like that, there we go. So we've actually got a little bit more gap in here than we used to, which should be okay, and everything should hold in together quite nicely. Of course, we're going to have to acetone weld all this together, but I've left a little bit of extra play in one side now so that it's easier to get the metal tube through. It should hold okay, and if it doesn't hold perfectly, we can always throw a bit of hot glue on it, and that should hold it a lot better. Now, you'll also see I've got a little shim off the side here, and that is for holding this guy in place. So the other thing I've done is I've actually moved where this sits back a little bit, because it was actually, well, that's the other way around. So it was out here, this side of this wall, and now it's kind of back a little bit. And this is mostly just to keep it safe, because I'm not quite sure how well this new armor is going to hold up. So I figured I'd throw it back a little bit and keep it protected from everything that's going on around here. Done and done. So now we have two pillars in here that are basically welded into this plastic piece. What I didn't realize or didn't take into account is that the base plate does flex a little bit. So it's possible to move these things back and forth, but once we have everything secured in place and all done together, we can just super glue or hot glue around the actual aluminium rod here, and that will keep all of this together and fairly rigid. So that should be totally fine. So we've also got an ABS printed piece for the gear on the motor now, and also this guy, which is my attempt at fixing the problem we had before. So the motor mounts up here as normal, but now as we come down, there's enough space in under here that we're not going to bottom out on the arm. It will hit the saw first every time, hopefully. And at least that's the idea. We'll see how it goes in practice, but yeah, we should have enough space that the saw blade is the first thing that touches every single time. Again, fingers crossed, but I'm fairly confident. So next things next, we need some front armor because we can't be running a combat robot with no armor on it at all. Check it out, fancy new front armor. This stuff should be fairly impenetrable, and it's sitting there fairly well. It's got a little bit of spring to it, which I'm a little bit concerned about because it could try and unload that into some of the mounts, but everything seems pretty sturdy for the moment. I'm going to take this off again now because there's two things I've realized. One, it's going to be easier to put everything in here, or at least put the servo in here without these in place, and also it needs extra pieces here where my fingers are. I need two little lances almost, or like sides to the dustpan, so that I can use the dustpan properly to pick people up and then drop the saw on top of them. So I do need two little sticks out the side here, which will probably just be more HDPE, 2mm HDPE. It should be enough to do the job from here. There you go. That's going to be good front armor, I think. happy with that, considering the blade that's on the robot at the moment is the one that we used last month, and it is getting a little bit blunt. I'm currently waiting for an order of more blades so that I have some more for the next competition. And also the battery's a touch flat. It's also the one that I used at the end of last month, and it also hasn't been charged since then. So considering both of those factors, we did some serious damage. Check this out. I mean, those are some nice, long, deep cuts, which is exactly what I wanted. And I think it's the new arm. The new arm allows that much more clearance to get through things, which is just helping so much. This is going to be great going into another competition. Also, I put this on the scale before. We're at 145 grams. We've somehow done all of these upgrades and dropped 5 grams. I'm so happy about that. In fact, I might reprint the chassis and all parts that are acetone welded into it so that I can just add a little bit more thickness to the wedge, because the wedge is not quite flat at the front, and I think that's purely because it's so thin that it warped just a little bit as I've been kind of manhandling the robot and putting it together. So if I can thicken up the wedge a little bit and maybe add a little bit more reinforcement just inside behind the HDPE front plate, then I think we'll be good to go, and we'll probably be back up towards that 150 grams again, which will be nice. The other thing, I did realize that the saw arm wobbles around a little bit. I might try and jam some nylon washers in there or something like that. That should help that, because it will allow it to spin freely, but it will also stop it from wobbling side to side. But we have enough gear in there that even with the wobble side to side, we're not actually losing mesh of the gear teeth. So I think it's okay. But overall, that's come out quite well. One thing I did note too, though, is that I still had the drive issue. I was still getting a couple of times I'd kind of jerk in one direction. I think it's actually the motor itself rather than, I blamed it on the old scoop. I think it's just an old dead motor. I have some new motors coming in as well, so that will probably also get changed out, especially if I do a chassis change off camera. I'll change the motors over as well. Yeah, there we go. I'm really happy with that. That's come out way better than I thought it was going to, and I can't wait to see how it goes at next month's meet. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next video.